There's a hidden place deep in the bayou, off every map, where trees lean too close and the moss whispers your name. They call it Bellbrook Hollow. Few find it by choice, and none leave unchanged. Welcome to Where the Moss Grows Red. Part 1. The Map with No Name, June Mallory. They told me not to go. The man at the gas station looked at my boots, mud-caked and worn, then at the dog-eared journal in my hand and said, "Ain't nothing down that way but rot and regret." But I've always been the kind of person who walks toward the strange, a botanist by title, a collector of oddities by nature. I chase things that grow where they shouldn't, and I'd never seen anything like what was described in those brittle, yellowed pages, a moss, red as blood, not red-tinged, not brown, crimson, like something living had dried out screaming. I found the journal in a forgotten archive at Tulane. No author name, just initials, LH, and a scrawled title on the first page, Bellbrook Hollow, where the moss grows red. No coordinates, no marked roads, just loose descriptions, a river bend shaped like a sickle, a cypress stump that looked like a weeping face, and always the moss. I was supposed to turn back after the trail disappeared, but I didn't. In the late afternoon, the deeper I walked into the marsh, the quieter the world became. No insects, no birds. Even the wind seemed reluctant. The trees leaned over the narrow path like disapproving elders, thick with Spanish moss. I reached out to brush one strand aside. It smeared red on my glove. At first, I thought it was sap, or maybe some fungal growth. But when I looked closer, the strand wept another droplet. Slow, thick, metallic smelling. I kept walking. Arrived in Bellbrook Hollow. Bellbrook Hollow appeared through fog, like something half-remembered from a dream. A town suspended in amber. Gas lamps, weathered porches, storefronts that looked preserved, not by care, but by something else, something older. The first person I saw was a child standing barefoot in the middle of the road, holding a doll by its hair. She didn't blink, didn't wave, just watched me approach, eyes wide, head tilted, like she was memorizing my face for later. I asked if her parents were nearby. She turned and walked away without a word. I meet the townsfolk. The rest of the town wasn't much more welcoming or awake. A man swept a porch that didn't need sweeping. A woman sat in a rocking chair without moving, hands still in her lap. Everyone looked expectant, like they'd been waiting for something, or someone. Then a voice behind me, soft as a hush. "You finally found us." I turned. An older woman stood at the edge of the general store's awning. Her dress was too old-fashioned, her eyes too sharp. "Excuse me?" I asked. "June Mallory," she said, not asking. "We've been waiting. This is Bellbrook Hollow." "How did you know my name?" "Same way the moss knows when it's time to grow. It just does." I wanted to ask more, but my throat felt dry. The woman smiled, and it wasn't unkind, but there was something hollow behind it. Something rehearsed. She gestured to a narrow road leading deeper into town. "You'll be staying at the widow's house. Room's already made up. The Widow's House Inn." The inn was sagging but intact. No cars, no sign-in sheet. Just a brass key already waiting on the counter, tied with a ribbon red as the moss. The room smelled of dried flowers and mildew. I dropped my bags, trying to shake off the unease. I should have felt triumphant. I'd found it. Bellbrook Hollow, the moss, everything the journal whispered about. But it felt like something had found me. That night, I stepped outside to breathe, to clear my head. The fog was thicker now, the trees farther off than they'd been during the day. I lit a cigarette, cupped the match against the wind that wasn't there. When I exhaled, the smoke just stayed. It didn't drift, didn't rise. It curled around my face like fingers and hung in the air, unmoving, like time was holding its breath. I've traveled to places forgotten by time, but this is the first time I've felt time forget me. They warned me not to come, but I had to see the red moss for myself. Now I wonder if that's why it wanted me here, to see, to remember. Because in Bellbrook Hollow, the moss doesn't just grow, it waits. Part 2. The gloom beneath the church. The first full day in Bellbrook Hollow passed like a dream that never woke up. The sun rose, but the sky stayed the color of old milk. The town looked the same as when I'd arrived. No movement, no change. It was like someone had painted it all and nailed it to the earth. But the details started pressing in. I was walking through the town. The lanterns never went out. They hung on porches and lampposts, oil-burning glass beacons with flickering yellow flames. But I never saw anyone light them. I checked one near the inn. Still warm, but no soot, no smoke trail, as if the flame had always been there. The birds, or the lack of them, when he came next. The trees were heavy with moss and silence. Not a chirp, not even the buzz of insects. Just the low, droning hum of something I couldn't name, threading through the air like a hidden tune played too slow. I asked a woman at the corner store, thin with clouded eyes and a stitched-on smile, if there'd been birds around. Lately. She blinked too long, then replied, "The birds go quiet round the gloom." I asked what that meant. She looked over her shoulder, then changed the subject to bread. When I approached the church. But it was the church that finally pulled me off the edge of curiosity and into something colder. It stood at the end of a street no one walked, a warped white building surrounded by hanging moss and leaning gravestones. The steeple crooked like it had been bowing for decades. Its doors were chained shut. I stood outside, expecting silence. Instead, I heard hymns. Faint, low, not from a choir, but from one voice. Gravelly, echoing, too slow to sound alive. A preacher's cadence drifting through the boards and cracks, heavy with wet breath and ritual. The moss, O Lord, in your mercy, let it remember. The hair on my arms stood straight. I turned to ask a man across the street if he heard it too, but he turned and walked away. Back in the widow's house, nightfall. I returned to the inn unsettled. I wanted to leave, to drive out and forget Bellbrook Hollow like a bad fever dream, but I didn't know how. The road I came in on was now thick with fog. GPS was useless. No cell service. Even my compass spun like it couldn't make up its mind. I went to sleep with the journal clutched in my hands, flipping back through its cryptic entries. One sentence kept catching my eye. The gloom has roots, and roots remember. In the middle of the night, something changes. I woke in the dark. Not because of a sound, but because it was too quiet. Even the strange humming had stopped. The air felt thick, as if someone had filled the room with water and forgotten to drown me. I lit a match. That's when I saw it. Red moss. Threading. Out across my windowsill in hair-thin tendrils, coiling like it had grown while I slept. I stepped back and froze. It wasn't just on the sill. It was in my hairbrush, clumped in the bristles like tangled veins. I dropped it. The moss pulsed. Once, I swear to God, it pulsed. I spoke aloud, shaken. "This isn't natural," I whispered, voice cracking. And from somewhere outside, deep, low, guttural, I heard something laugh. I came here chasing folklore, a forgotten journal, a miracle of biology, I thought. But I'm beginning to understand. There's no science in this place. Only rot. Only memory. Only the gloom. Part 3. The ones who walk into the trees. I didn't sleep after the moss incident. I couldn't. Not with the brush lying on the floor like a warning. Not with the air too still, too aware. By morning, Bellbrook Hollow looked unchanged, like it always does. But something in the bones of the town felt shifted. Like a breath had been held, like something was about to feed. I wandered further than usual, past the post office and beyond the chapel, through thickets of fog so dense they blurred the buildings behind me. I followed no path, just instinct, or maybe something older. That's when I saw the child. A boy, maybe 8 years old, pale as paper and barefoot. He stood just beyond a curtain of moss, watching me with eyes too still to be natural. He didn't speak, just turned and started walking toward the trees, and I followed. I know how that sounds, but I followed. The forest at the town's edge is older than Bellbrook Hollow. You can feel it, the weight of time sinking into every root. The air was thick with damp rot, and the trees leaned in like they were eavesdropping. The boy led me to one particular tree, a massive, gnarled thing with bark that looked half flesh. He pointed to it. Names. Dozens carved into the trunk. Some old and faded, others fresh and clean, like they'd been etched yesterday. I walked further in. Every tree bore names, whole generations of them. Sometimes the same last names, whole families, one after another. Then the boy pointed at a tree near the path. His own name was on it, and when I looked back to ask him what it meant, he was gone. The nightfall in the town center. That night, the lanterns glowed brighter than ever. Every window was lit. The townspeople stood in their yards, their porches, lining the street, still and silent. I stood at my window and watched with them. At the edge of the main road, someone emerged. A middle-aged woman in a long, weathered coat. She held no suitcase, no belongings, just walked barefoot toward Grinnell Wood. She didn't speak. No one did. When she reached the trees, the vines moved. They welcomed her, coiled around her legs, up her arms, brushing her cheeks like fingers saying, "Goodbye." And then they pulled, swallowed her whole. The trees groaned once, low and slow, like a stomach digesting, and the hollow exhaled. Next morning. I ran into town the next morning, frantic, ready to demand answers. But no one seemed to remember. The you-all woman was gone, and the town moved on like she'd never existed. Her house was empty, her name erased. I asked the innkeeper if someone had gone missing. He just smiled that same smile. "Not missing, dear. Given." I asked why. He didn't answer. Just said, "There's a rhythm to things here. Best not break. The rhythm. There's something ancient living in the woods. Not just in them. As them. Something that needs to be fed, season after season. And the people here, they don't resist. They remember the cost, but never the names. Because in Bellbrook Hollow, the forest takes what it's owed, and the moss remembers the rest." Part 4. Red grows where memory dies. I've always trusted records. Paper doesn't lie. Not the way people can. So I went to the archives. Bellbrook Hollow keeps its records beneath the town hall, a basement more like a crypt, dust thicker than ash. Cabinets warped by moisture, labels blurred by time. But one thing stood out immediately. The year 1933. Before it, dozens of handwritten ledgers, births, deaths, marriages, deeds. Line after line in tight, elegant script. After it, Nothing. Just blank pages, ledger after ledger, names scratched out, entire families erased, like someone had tried to keep the town's story going, and then simply stopped. I was flipping. Through tattered books, I found a leather-bound journal wedged behind a false back in one of the cabinets. Its cover was soft, like something that had once been alive. Inside, someone had written in frantic, looping script, "We begged the land for mercy," and something answered. It came with rot in its breath and roots in its mouth. It made promises. To keep Bellbrook alive, we had to give it what it craved. At first, it wanted only the dying, then the lonely, then the willing. But now, it hungers for more. I started noticing it after that. Little things, slipping moments. I called the innkeeper by name and couldn't remember what it was. I found myself staring at my own reflection and blinking like it was someone else's face. Once I looked at my driver's license and felt the letters blur, not because my eyes failed me, but because something in me refused to see. I whispered my name into the mirror. June Mallory. But it didn't sound right. It didn't feel like mine. That night, the wind howled for the first time since I arrived. Not loud. Low, like a whisper humming through the moss. I could hear it, threading through the rafters under my skin. It said, "You'll give too. You'll forget who you were. You'll grow red and still. The moss isn't just a plant. It isn't just alive. It's intelligent. It's ancient. It feeds on more than bodies. It consumes memory. You don't leave Bellbrook Hollow by walking away. You leave when you've forgotten you ever arrived." In the journal, the last page had only one sentence, scribbled and shaking. "If you cannot remember your name, the moss already has you." I read it and forgot what I was looking for. For 10 whole minutes, I stood in the archive holding a book I didn't remember opening, in a town I couldn't name. My name is June. June Mallory, isn't it? Part 5, A Voice in the Moss. I don't remember when I decided to leave. Maybe it was after I forgot my own birthday. Or when the shopkeeper called me by someone else's name. Marjorie, I think. Or maybe it was the red moss growing beneath. My nails. Whatever it was, I packed my bag before sunrise and started down the trail I came in on, back toward the edge of the swamp. Only, it wasn't there. Every path looked familiar, and every path looked wrong. The trees leaned differently than I remembered. The fog was heavier, the air thicker. I walked east for hours. The sun never moved. The trail circled back. I passed my own, boot prints, then passed them again, deeper this time, more worn, as if I'd been walking for days. And the moss was everywhere. It crept over logs, across the trail, up the trunks of trees like arteries on skin. It pulsed. It breathed. Then, I started to hear them, soft voices rising from the moss. Not in English. Not in words. Emotions. A lullaby my mother used to hum. The way my sister laughed. My father's quiet cough when he didn't want to cry. Dead sounds, dead people. And they were calling me. Narration, June. I froze by a split in the path. To the left, silence. To the right, a familiar voice, warm and gentle, echoing from the trees. June, come home. It was my sister, Camille. She died 6 years ago in a car crash. I ran toward the sound before I even thought about it. In the clearing, I saw her sitting on a rotted swing, wearing her favorite sweater, smiling. Her skin was soft, but wrong. Pale, stretched thin, too smooth. She reached out, and I saw the moss growing through her sleeves, blooming from her wrists. Her eyes weren't eyes, just blank, wet hollows, filled with red fuzz. "Still," she said, "you're tired, June. Just lay down. Let the roots hold you. You've done enough." And for a moment, God help me, I believed her. But then I saw something else, just behind her. Another figure, standing in the trees, watching me. It was me, but ruined. Skin blackened with mold, hair like spider silk, red moss threaded through, her teeth blooming from her eye sockets. She didn't walk, she glided. Her mouth didn't move when she spoke. "You're becoming me. You're already forgetting. You're already mine." I turned and ran. The moss writhed underfoot, rising in waves. Trees cracked like bones. The wind howled with voices. I didn't know where I was going. There was nowhere to go. Only away, and somehow, impossibly, I ended up at the church, the one that hums without a choir. Its doors creaked open before I touched them. Inside, the pews were empty, but the air pulsed with song. And at the altar, not a cross, not a figure, just a lump of moss, thick and pulsing, shaped like a heart. Beating slow and steady, it spoke in 100 voices. Mine among them. You've seen too much. You've stayed too long. You'll forget. You'll fall. You'll bloom. I'm not sure what brought me out. Maybe instinct. Maybe something in me that still remembered who I was. I ran from the church, and behind me, I heard her again. That rotted version of myself, still chasing me, still whispering what I'll become. I can't find the way out, but the moss can, and it knows I'm tired, it knows what I've lost, and now it knows my name. Part 6. The Hollow Will Have You. I didn't sleep last night. I sat on the floor of the cabin with my back to the wall and my hands wrapped in bandages. The moss had begun threading through the cuts on my fingers like stitches. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw her. Me, but hollowed out. Smiling too wide. Whispering what I'm supposed to become. So before the sun could rise, if it even still does here, I went back. Back to the church. To the heart of it all. The door opened before I touched it. It knew I was coming. Inside, it wasn't empty anymore. The pews were full, every seat taken by the townsfolk. Faces I knew, and faces I didn't. Eyes closed, heads tilted back, and every one of them was growing. Moss spilled from their mouths, from their ears, crawled down their necks like dripping wax, breathing in unison, not with lungs, but roots, and at the pulpit. The voice, the preacher's voice I'd heard so many times, but never seen. There was no man, only a shape of moss and bone, draped in a rotted black suit, with a wide smile carved into the green. It didn't move its mouth when it spoke, but I heard, it clear as thunder in my skull. The voice of the gloom. "Welcome home, June Mallory. You searched for us. You trespassed. You witnessed. Now you will remember, forever." I stepped forward. The floor creaked beneath me, but the moss held it together like sinew. I looked closer at the congregation. These weren't people anymore. They were memories. Echoes fed by the thing beneath the roots. Held together by a pact inked in blood and silence, not living, not dead, just sustained. And I understood, finally, why the town never changed, why no one aged, why history stopped in 1933. The gloom had offered them eternity, but only in stillness, only in surrender. I could have run. I could have clawed at the swamp until it swallowed me whole. But it wouldn't matter. The moss had grown inside me. It whispered in my own voice now. So instead, walked. Out the back of the church, through the fog, down the trail where names are carved into trees like tombstones, toward Grinnell Wood. The forest opened its mouth to greet me. No resistance, no fear. The red moss curled toward my feet like ribbons in water. The trees leaned in to watch. The air was heavy with silence, and the further I walked, the less I remembered. My parents' faces, my favorite song, the smell of rain, gone, replaced by something deeper, older, like memory sinking into soil. I reached the center of the wood, where the trees circle something that isn't a tree at all, just a mass of moss and bone, a body that never stops growing. I stepped inside its shadow, and it welcomed me, wrapped me in warmth. Not cold, not pain, just release. I was looking for a story. Now I am one. You'll find me, maybe, if you wander far enough, in the moss that grows red, where memory dies and lives again. In the distance, a low melodic hum begins. The same hymns from the church, but deeper, below ground, sung by voices not bound to flesh. June's voice among them, soft, steady, and endless. The hollow will have you too, if you felt something stir while listening, something old, something watching. Then there are more stories waiting for you. Subscribe to Haunted Echoes, and don't follow the moss unless it whispers your name.